So good afternoon, everybody. Thanks a lot for coming along to this panel session. As you can see from the presentation here, this is the DSP Leaders Industry Vision 2025 report. I'll explain a little bit about what that is in a moment, but I'm glad to say that we've got a great panel of speakers here today to talk about some of the results and topics raised in this report. So before I do this intro about the report, I'm going to get this panel to introduce themselves so you're not left wondering in suspense anymore about who we've got. So I'll move down this, starting with yourself, Geoff, if you could introduce yourself.
Yep. Hello and welcome. Geoff Hollingworth. I work with marketing in Rakuten Symphony.
Gabriela Sjöman, Managing Director of Research and Network Strategy for BT Group.
Hello, everyone. I'm Cristina Rodriguez. I'm within Intel Corporation. I head the business for communications and telco at Intel.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ahmed Hafez from Deutsche Telekom, Group Technology. I'm responsible for strategy of networks.
Okay, thank you. And I'm Ray Lemaitre, Editorial Director at TelecomTV. And in late 2023, TelecomTV launched the DSP Leaders Council, which has about 100 senior industry executive members from the network operator, vendor, enterprise, systems integrator, analyst communities, all thought leaders, all influencers in the sector. And we turn to that council for insight during the course of the year on a regular basis, and sometimes through surveys. And in January of this year, we ran a survey with our councillors and published the results in our 2025 DSP Leaders Industry Vision report, which is available for anybody to download for free from the reports section of the TelecomTV website. So we asked our councillors a broad range of questions on hot topics in the telecom sector. And we're going to discuss a few of those topics here today and take a look at the views of our council. So let's get stuck in. And the first topic is the 5G return on investment. So the question we asked was, will telcos ultimately achieve a decent return on their 5G investments? This has been a big question for a number of years, and I know it's still going to be a question for a few more years yet. So as you can see, our council members are still quite bullish about 5G. A slight majority, 54%, said that yes, they believe that there's going to be a decent return on investment, while only 25% of the councillors who voted thought that the telcos will never get a decent return on their 5G investments, which of course are still ongoing. So the question for the panel here is our council too optimistic? More than half of them think that the telcos are going to get a decent return on 5G. Are they too optimistic? Are they too pessimistic? Who would like to start and give a thought on 5G ROI? Gabriela.
I can start. I prefer to stay optimistic. I always say, it's better to be known as for have tried. No, but I do think that there are still tremendous opportunities. I think we need to differentiate between having the technology to build the network from the maturity and differentiate separate that from the maturity of the ecosystem. And I think we see some really good, encouraging signs that digitalization is picking up in a number of verticals, which is what we've been waiting for. That demand is not material yet, but I do see some really interesting signs that hopefully will, boost the demand for 5G on the enterprise side. So B2B, B2, B2X type of use cases. Still some way to go, but the ecosystem is picking up, which is what we need.
Okay. Ahmed.
I stay also being optimistic, and I think 5G is actually delivering its value, because the value is not only on special use cases, it generally speaking on the coverage, on the capabilities that 5G have brought. So we should not reduce it only to B2B. Even for B2B in Deutsche Telekom, we've done a lot of use cases that would actually harvest that, like 5G campus networks and also live video production. So we did that with RTL, and we could prove that slicing and the advanced capabilities can be leveraged. We can leverage 5G. So the other point is also refreshing our networks with 5G have also paid off, also for consumers. So I stay positive on that, and I think there is, as Gabriela said, there is a lot of more opportunities to come. So we stay positive.
Well, and I think it's worth pointing out as well, when this topic was raised a few months ago, your CEO stood up and said, I don't care what anybody else thinks, Deutsche Telekom is making profitable growth from 5G, and we're the outlier. And
Indeed.
so you gave the right answer there. Yeah, go for it, Cristina.
Well, first of all, I'm really glad that you guys are saying that you're the experts on this topic for sure. I'm a vendor for you guys, but I think I agree with you, and I want to be, I'm optimistic also about not only what has already been accomplished with the 5G network, but the possibilities of the future. And I think we were at a point where we needed to have a more modern architecture, where we needed to bring innovation, and we needed to have in place an architecture that was proven for the future, and that would allow us in the future to be able to bring new technologies, new use cases, new services, both in the public cloud and in enterprise, and leverage that we needed to get there to be able to leverage in the future. But also the kind of things that we have seen from the total cost of ownership, the steps taken toward that, right? The automation, the being able to bring new services, new quality of experience. You were talking about the customer experience. I think it's all positive. It was really good.
I feel a certain amount of peer pressure to be positive. So I will also be tremendously positive. The 5G is a modern platform. So it has capabilities that weren't there before. I think the interesting question for all of us in the industry is then, when will it be fully profitable? How will it be fully profitable? And for each of us, how can we maximize that profit? So one thing that's going to change is that I think we've lived in a world that has had a very much one-size-fits-all approach to providing solutions to the market. Now I think with a modern platform, we're going to differentiate from each of our different approaches and assets. And I think that's where the industry starts to take part in different ways with other industries. And I think the industry is poised to get a little bit more interesting.
Okay, so resoundingly positive here on the panel, just positive from the council, but it seems that there's hope for some of the. Yeah, do you want to come back in again?
No, I will stay positive, but just,
all right.
Just maybe I will try to assume and make some assumptions on why some have seen it unprofitable or quite heavy, intensified capex investments. I think the problem came when you came late to 5G. So for those operators who started to get to 5G late and they start to go slow and keep 4G for as long as possible, thinking that they will benefit of that, they got a hit with a spike of capex investments when they come to 5G. If you start to say, okay, I am now spiking my investments, so how do I actually get back this money? What is the return on investments? This is an unfair calculation of that type of business case, because it should have been smoothened down. You should have dialed back on your LTE investments, started investing in 5G. Yeah, you will invest a little bit more, but if you delay that, you will come a point that you need to refresh your network and you need to put 5G in the network, so you will have to double, triple invest the 3 years that you decided not to do. So that's why then return on investment becomes a problem to make it a business case. The wise decision could have been, which is, of course, I'm claiming that we have done that. We have done that wise decision. So we started quite early, so gradually going to 5G, so we didn't have that hit.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, there are lots of moving parts here, aren't there? I mean, all the markets are different, but there's still a general consensus. There was a debate earlier on at an NGMN briefing, and it was clear from a lot of the operators that their CFOs and at board level were still asking, when are we going to see a decent ROI on 5G? So it's definitely still a big thing, a big talking point within the operators.
Well, and I think I think that there was a false set of expectations about the market potential. So it's it really depends which context and which lens you're looking through on your levels of happiness.
I'm not so sure that it was, maybe false expectations. I would say that probably one of the big learnings for 5G is that we need to involve the adopters. So not the adopters. I mean, we are as telcos adopters of technology, but we need to involve those who will adopt the networks that we build. So the capabilities, I'm talking about the verticals, to truly understand the challenges. Nobody wakes up, but we all talk about this. Nobody wakes up wanting to buy a 5G private network just like that, or a slice. It's about the outcomes, but also the challenge to understand that many of the enterprises, they have a lot of barriers to adopt these, right?
We're going to come to this a bit later on as well. So, but we should move on now. And I have actually clicked one too far. There we go. So, sticking with the topic of generations, while telcos are grappling with their 5G return on investment, they are being bombarded now with 6G planning requests, and we've been building up to this now ever since 5G was launched. I think people. The only thing I haven't heard at MWC this year, somebody mentioned 7G. So please, nobody do that. But of course, the 6G noise is getting much louder now that the commonly agreed commercial launch date for 6G services is only 5 years away. There's a really important meeting in South Korea next week to start talking about the working groups at 3GPP. So we asked our councillors, is the telecom sector doing enough to prepare for 6G? I'm sorry. And it's fair to say that we did not get a unanimous answer. As the results from our survey show, there's a definite split amongst the council members. 38% believe current levels of RDN planning are adequate and appropriate. 35% believe that the telecom sector shouldn't be wasting any of its time and resources on 6G. So that's a pretty brutal assessment. That's a third of people were like, forget about it. You don't need to do it. That was in January. I wonder, they're probably here. I wonder what they might be thinking now. But how should the telecom sector be thinking about 6G? And has enough advance work been done up to this point? Anybody want to start there? I have to come to you, Gabriela, because this is your field. So, research, head of R&D.
I mean, the number one thing for us is, we are engaged in 6G and in standardization, but for us it's important to see it as an evolution. The last thing we want is to have the same thing as 5G, so it should be an evolution of. But I think I go back to that learning, and I also have standardization under my responsibility, and one of the things that we are trying to drive a lot with 3GPP as well is to say we've got to involve the adopters. The potential adopters of 6G need to be involved in the standardization. It cannot only be the network equipment providers, the telco manufacturers or a network, and the telcos. We need to have a broader ecosystem involved in the standardization of 6G. That's going to be essential, not the only piece of the puzzle for success, but a very important one.
Let me build on Gabriela. So I fully agree with that. So we have to play our part in the standards. We have to shape the industry. If we will leave that away with let's say the 35% that says that, we endanger that we will not have a value-driven next generation mobile networks. And what we need to focus on is that we need to make sure that whatever comes next is something of value to not only to us, to the customers, to the society. It has to be sustainable, and it has to be AI native. It has to have value inside it. Not just make some changes here and there and a bit in radio and then completely refresh the network so we gain nothing. So it has to come with that value. In order to see that value, then exactly what you, Gabriela, just said, is that we need to engage with verticals, with customers, consumers. We understand what the future will entail, and then make sure that it's the core part of 6G. So we deliver value out of 6G, not just rush into it. So we focus on what makes a difference, not just in next generation.
I think I'm afraid that you're going to have a lot of alignment. We all voted in the same color here, apparently. But I totally agree with Ahmed and Gabriela. I think it's great to be talking about 6G. And, let's start talking about it. But what is the problem that we're solving? We don't need the 6G just for the sake of 6G. What is it that 6G is going to be, and what it's going to bring to society? What's going to bring to the consumer? How it's going to bring to the world and the industries? So I think number one, so two things. One, from my perspective, we just modernized the network. We haven't even finished yet across, if you look from the worldwide perspective. So let's get as much miles as we can out of this network. There is a lot to be done. There is a lot of innovation to be bring. There is new services. There is the enterprise that we haven't even scratched the surface with so much potential. Let's do that. And yes, in parallel, we can start talking about 6G, but let's figure out what is that we're solving and what do we need a 6G and what is that gonna do for the world?
Geoff, I need to come to you and ask if you were in the 35%. It's an anonymous survey, so it's up to you whether you want to own up or not.
I feel tremendous peer pressure speaking last on this panel, actually. The only time that I've heard 6G referenced at the show is last night, and they were talking about the number of gin and tonics that had been consumed. I find that a number of people have pointed out, and I find it tremendously refreshing, there hasn't been 6G painted across this show at all. Now, that doesn't mean that 6G isn't important as an evolutionary step, but it's not commercially at the front. It's something, I love your comment, the collaboration outside our industry to involve other people so that we know how to provide value is absolutely essential. From a commercial point of view, we need to be driving our commercial business. The 6G should not be the tail wagging the dog. It should be the other way round. And I think the industry is very quickly adjusting to that fact. I'd love to know if we are involving the other industries in a much more active way inside the standardization, because I think we have to increase the value in the standards commercial.
Well, I wouldn't say we are, but it's been recognized. And I say this because I did attend a round table on Sunday with some standardization bodies. And this is what some of us raised. And we said, please, we have to involve the adopters of these use cases. We need to understand what are we solving for. And we also need to understand what is that wider ecosystem. We talk about sensing networks. Well, to solve for what? And what's that ecosystem? You will need sensors. You will need the network. You will need to digital. There's going to be many, many things. So I wouldn't say we are there, but if we talk about this, we probably have the chance to address it now.
Well, and just one last comment, because I've heard some very innovative approaches to how we perhaps restructure the standards in terms of having a base level in our industry and more of a plug-in model where people can actually build on our standard, because every other industry has their own standards. And I think one mistake that we have made traditionally, it's not just the 5G, but in the history, is we've placed ourselves in the center to a great amount. And I think we need to understand that we're part of a greater good than being the destination. Greater good was pretty positive.
That's very positive. Let's see how you feel at the end of this panel, Geoff, but that's very good. So we do need to move on and get through a few more topics. And also, just a last point on 6G, it'll be really interesting to see what the results from the same question are next year, once there's been a bit more volume and activity and some decisions made, and see if that 35% has scaled back a bit and people are a bit less pessimistic. But moving on to the vendor landscape, there's been a lot of discussion in recent years about the perceived needs for network operators to have a broader selection of vendors with which to engage, especially in the radio access part of the network. But is there actually an appetite for more vendors? So we asked our councillors, do DSPs, CSPs, so the digital service providers, the telcos, need a broader ecosystem of vendors to meet their needs? Now, the response was pretty unanimous. 75% of the councillors saying yes, a broader selection of vendors is needed. But in the previous year, when we asked the same question, the result was 86%. So there's definitely a scaling back here in the number of councillors who think that that broader ecosystem is needed. So is the tide turning? Do service providers really need a broader selection of technology partners to meet their needs? So, Geoff, I'm going to start with you this time, deliberately, so that you don't feel like you have to mop up at the end.
I was hoping you'd do that. As an alternative vendor in this landscape, I think we're in a tremendously interesting place. So if we look forward from here, what we do understand is that the networks are going to be much more heterogeneous and much more embedded in regional ecosystems. In parallel, we see geopolitics becoming much more interesting on a daily basis and less predictable. But at the same time, as the members say they want variety, one of the challenges we have to embrace is this strange behavior where the economic investments aren't following that direction. But in the future, we have to be less fragile than we are today in terms of a supplier landscape. I think everyone accepts that. And the question is not whether the diversity happens, it's at what timeline and what velocity. And hopefully it does that before there is some increased fragility in actually the supply base.
Anybody? Yeah, Cristina, do you want to come in? I mean, is the tide turning here?
Yeah, I want to comment on that because Intel, we're so big in ecosystem, and for many, many years we have been big at sharing and our learnings and working very closely with ecosystem. I think it has to be, there is an economic aspect of it, right? The return of investment has to be there for the ecosystem in order to participate. And if short of that, it's going to be less participation. I think we start getting into the ecosystem when and you guys know we have been working with the industry in getting into a more software-defined network. You guys who have been working very closely on that with Geoff and his team, but getting into a more software-defined network, which will bring, we believe, and open standards, which will bring more participation, where people can add different. The ecosystem doesn't have to be only in one aspect, but it can be all across the stack, either in the specific radio stacks or and especially in the application, in the different type of application. I think what you were saying, Gabriela, on the enterprise is also a tremendous opportunity, because now you can come up with really creative application. We have a demo running in our booth. It's a basically a private 5G demo, but it's a multi-workload consolidation in a box, and this is a ruggedized system where you can put it in manufacturing, you can put it in mining, you can put it on a port, and then we're working with the ecosystem, and they're bringing different applications and doing really cool gear protection, detection, facial recognition, a lot of stuff, and we have the capability there. And speaking from what I know, that we have the capability in our Xeon. We just launched the Xeon 6 SoC that have media transcoding there. It has AI acceleration. So now you can put at the edge, you can put these boxes and just let the innovators of the world run their minds and their imagination and bring a lot of goodness for enterprise. And I think that's when we're going to see a really takeoff of that wider ecosystem.
Gabriela.
So my view on diversification of the ecosystem is also kind of tied to the economics of it. But starting from my lens, being a telecom a telco. I think that it's the best of breed, best of suite type of discussion always needs to be seen from the lens of the customer. And for me, it's, if something adds value to my customer, I'm all for it. But if it doesn't add value to my customer, so making money versus, okay, super optimization, my shareholder, efficiency, if it's somewhere in between, then because there's a lot of heavy lifting and what I call sometimes undifferentiated heavy lifting. If you break down the supply chain too much and start mixing too many, there's a lot of cost, a big TCO cost in operating too many vendors. So certainly we want to have more diversification in supply chain, but it's balanced. It needs to make also economic sense. And then I think the point is they also have to be able to survive. The industry has to be big enough for them to survive.
And we have to remember, just because people think there should be more diversification, that doesn't mean they're going to use it. So it's like, it's like a wish list. But Ahmed, do you think that the sense that we could do with more technology partners for the network operators comes from this potential of the software applications that could be running on the cloudified platforms?
Definitely, that's one of the angles. But I want to just highlight another motive why we think that a broader ecosystem is essential. It's for resilience. So sometimes it doesn't give the return on investment that you see in the short term, but on the long term it does. And I would say it's not only the O-RAN, for instance, or the RAN area, it's also the core. There's also other areas in the network. And then we see consolidations along. If you look at the last 20 years back, how many suppliers, and you dial back until you come here, suppliers are decreasing. There is a lot of consolidation, and that's not good for us, and neither for the suppliers as well. And I believe there is a lot of money, and the suppliers needs to be more efficient to get things done in a cost-efficient manner. And that's where AI and all softwareization comes in play. Because if you're a software supplier, your base of investments is not like what when you're building hardware. When you're building hardware, you have a lot of constraints and you have to take care of that. But essentially, we believe that multi-supply is essential. Our strategy, for example, in DT, in O-RAN, we have multi-suppliers. In everything we try to do, we put multi-suppliers because we recognize that if we go with one single supplier, we endanger our resilience in the future. We don't know, as Geoff was also saying, geopolitics are quite volatile. So we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And we need to be resilient enough. We need to be prepared. So how can we react to such changes quite fast?
Excellent. So I'm going to move on now because we're going to come to the topic now that's already cropped up a few times, and that's the potential of the enterprise services market. So here we go. This has been a topic for as long. I started reporting in the telecom sector in the mid-1990s, and the first topic I was given was, can the telcos make more money from the enterprise sector? And here we are. Here we are, still wondering the same thing. So while most telco revenues still tend to be derived from the consumer customers, it's long been thought, very long time, that there's a pot of gold at in the enterprise sector that's yet to be successfully tapped. So we asked our councillors, should service providers focus new service development efforts on the enterprise services sector? And as was the case a year ago, 3/4 of our councillors are convinced that it's the B2B sector that offers the greatest opportunity for revenue growth. And I think if this question had been asked in 1996, the answer would have been, yes, it's the enterprise sector that's going to deliver. So the big question is, are the telcos now better equipped than they were before to achieve an increase in profitable revenues by focusing their efforts on enterprise services? Or is this still just a pipe dream? So is there a better opportunity now to actually deliver on this promise? Who wants to kick off? Ahmed.
So from the perspective of B2B in general, yeah, it's good because these are the areas that are quite nascent. So we need more capabilities to be given. But we see across the board, not only enterprises, but also on consumer side. But I will give you some examples on enterprises and why that's the huge potential. Is that if you see a lot of systems that have been using, for example, in the past, different solutions like Wi-Fi and others that could be easily replaced by 5G. And you can see also a lot of capabilities that we can offer to many sectors. But there are legacy in these sectors, and they suffer from things that we also suffer from when it comes to legacy. So their movement is not so fast. So we have to be a little bit more patient and listen to them and understand their demands and also respond to that. And on the other angle, for example, I'll give you an example with the security service we launched a month ago was focused on SMEs, small and medium enterprises, where we delivered security within the network so that you have seamless. So we found that there is a demand for that and customers need it. They don't want to bother with softwares and things like that as small companies, not like big companies that have data centers and have the infrastructure and IT skills to do so. And there are many opportunities like that. It's just the courage that we put the investments, put it in the market, and also listen to them what they need, how to tailor that for them. So I really believe that is a great opportunity to do more and more, but not only for enterprise, also for consumer.
Okay. But do you think that the service providers are better placed now than ever? I mean, they might have technologies that might be able to help them better, but do they have a better opportunity of going to the market, the way they engage with the market to try and get these profitable revenues? Because at the end of the day, a sale, something has to be marketed and somebody has to buy something. And that might not change even if the technology does.
I think we have a great opportunity. I think we do a lot of, actually big part of our revenues come from the enterprise markets today. So I'm not really seeing that there's any big change. We've been doing that for a long time. We'll continue to do that. I mean, the opportunity is there because more capabilities are coming and more capabilities would enable to have more services and more capabilities. But the demand will dictate what they want exactly. It's not just about technology, it's about what they need.
So let me comment on the technology because I think that is important, and that's what we didn't have in. Well, when did you say
1827?
Okay,
yeah, no, 1996.
That's what we didn't have maybe even 10 years ago. What we have today, from the technology point of view, is a few things that have been proven, right? And I'm going to start with. We have now a platform. Common open platform available that anybody can go to an OEM or ODM, right? Anyone in the world, and buy a server. And you buy a server and you have a box, and with that box, you can run the core of the network. You can run the RAN at the same time. You can have security. You can have video processing, and you can have artificial intelligence. All in the processing, AI processing, all in the same box. And that, by the way, maybe we didn't have it a year ago, but today, or 2 years ago, but today, and I want to talk about this because it's important that everybody knows that exists. Today, we just launched, by the way, what is called Xeon 6 SoC. And I don't mean to use this as a marketing platform, but it is the capabilities there. Xeon 6 SoC, we have the vRAN accelerate, the virtualization of the RAN small processing acceleration on the chip. We have 72 cores, up to 72 cores that you can dimension up and down. You have built-in AI acceleration. You have security acceleration. And you put all that together, you can have workload consolidation on one box. You give it, anybody can, talking about the ecosystem, right? Anybody can come and start writing software. And you just write software for a server that you can get for many OEM or ODM players, and then you can come up with a solution. And it's at the edge. You put it at the edge. Latency is very small. Cost is very small. You have everything you need right there. And there's multiple applications. There are examples. You just need to continue. We need to continue focusing on it and show the capabilities of the platform and the possibilities of the platform.
Okay. Gabriela.
I'll be a bit more provocative here.
Please do.
I don't think we're there yet. And I agree. I think the technology, so the problem is not the technology or you know, what we're doing in the network. I think the challenge, the opportunity lies in the transformation on the commercial side. And for many years, telcos have focused a lot on the network. I mean, we talked about network transformation, IT transformation, rebuilding the stacks, And that's all. We're not there yet, but that's all pretty good. I think the transformation now needs to happen on the commercial side, because you need to understand what are you selling? You're not selling a subscription any longer or a SIM card. You're selling perhaps an outcome. When we talk even about slicing, well, actually, slicing is performance based, right? It's about tailor-made performance. But tailor-made performance for what? We talk about intent network. Service aware, device aware. It's an intent. All these intent-based networks. So I think that we have the foundation, absolutely. But are we there to truly leverage? I think we still need to work on it.
Okay. Geoff, I know this is you could talk here for an hour, but we don't have that. But I know you're very keen on the customer focus, aren't you? And talking to the way customers need and helping them to find what they need.
Do you want me to just say yes and we move on?
Yeah.
They are. We're in a much better place than we were before, because now we have, if we start with Japan and Rakuten Mobile, first off, we're an internet services company. We're not a telco first. We operate 600,000 storefronts for everyone that's selling online. All of those people want to have embedded network and connectivity and make sure it works the right way. So it ties into what you said, Ray, that the starting point is, I think we have a lot of technology. The starting point is to actually understand, as I think we've all said, what are the outcomes the customers need. Then we have to deliver that in a consumable, easy, affordable way. Another example, we do see a massive shift to digitalization. Rakuten Cloud is working with Google Cloud, and it's transforming the largest fast food franchise, because the fast food franchisers have two goals. They want to sell more to each customer, which means that they want to dynamically present what that customer actually likes. But when they present it, they also want to prioritize the things that are already cooked to get people through as quickly as possible to increase the operational efficiency of that store. And that's technology that is getting rolled out, that every fast food organization will do. It will be the same with retail. So we're seeing all industries move now, but to follow up on what Gabriela said, the question is whether we can engage in a way that works for them, which doesn't involve speaking to 50 telecom engineers and discussing whatever they discuss.
Or not having phone up an enterprise and say, do you want to buy a 5G slice? I mean, there's a lot to be done still on sales and marketing techniques to go with the capabilities that there are in the industry. So, I mean, we could have an entire panel discussion around this and explore a lot of avenues, but we need to move on to our final topic. And we cannot have a discussion in this industry, obviously, without touching on artificial intelligence, that AI, because it's absolutely everywhere, as we've seen at this show. But of course, it is impacting every single part of this industry and other industries as well. So we asked our counsellors in our survey, do telcos need to allocate more financial and human resources to their AI strategies in 2025? Now, it's probably not surprising that 92% said yes, which means that the consensus is that the telcos are currently not allocating enough financial and human resources to their AI strategies, if nearly everybody thinks they need to put in more. So I'm wondering, from our panelist perspective here, is that fair? Because it does seem an awful lot of resource, time, money, focus has been put into AI strategies, not only in the past year, but actually quite a lot in previous years as well. So is this a bit unfair? Who wants to start?
Actually, I didn't read it this way. So I read it the other way around. So I read it that actually it should have been 100% saying that, but not because they don't invest. because they should invest even more. The point with AI is going so fast. We're all overwhelmed with the amount of changes that happens on now almost weekly basis. But there is a lot to embrace. If you look at our operational efficiencies, our planning, design, how we build the network, how do we secure the networks, and many other things that we do around all the life cycle of the network, let alone operations, which is the biggest by far, there's a lot for us to do. So AI have huge potential. So the point here is that, yes, we need more resources. And the resources here is a bit of sometimes people think when you need more resources that you need data scientists and data engineers. It's not only. You need data experts that have the time to actually work with the data scientists and data engineers to do something. And then we should also understand that there are phases in approaching AI, which is a pity if any operator decide not to do and wait. That's a big mistake because you won't learn anything. Actually, we're learning as we go. We start with point solutions that solve existing processes, tasks, and we adjust them, use AI for that. But we realize very quickly that there's a better way to do that. Like with agentic AI that decides the process. You don't have to decide the process up front, but you give it the proper guidelines so it can enhance your process. And that itself there's a huge amount of things to be done. Integration with our networks. How do we bypass legacy? There's a lot of stuff to do. So I would say, yes, we should put even more. So we're putting a lot of investments, but we should put even more resources and financials, and we keep pushing for that.
Okay, excellent. Who wants to go next? Geoff's taken the back.
I'm being told that I should get less money because we should be 3 times more productive because of AI. There's a certain element of truth in that model that, and it's not about AI investment per se, it's about investment overall. In the land of attrition, it's amazing what the solutions are that you come up with. I think what's going to be interesting in this journey is if people are investing a lot of money but not adjusting really what they're investing elsewhere and how they're doing their business, this will become it will become a fake journey and a false saving. That's really hard because that then touches into everything we're dancing around, which is really, it's not a technology problem, it's a people problem, it's a business transformation problem more than anything else. One comment where I think telecom should be investing a huge amount, which I'm surprised we're not, is the fact that telecom really is a software industry these days. But we have done terribly at that because we can't attract software engineers at scale. I am an actual software developer and now I code with AI. The empowerment I have means that I don't need to be a software developer to the same extent. My domain expertise is incredibly powerful, and now I can replicate what software people would normally have to be employed to do. I hope telecom uses this as an opportunity to remove the software developer gap, because I think the first industry that goes is software development.
Okay. Gabriela.
So I'd like to hear a little bit what we are doing and how we see AI. And by the way, I agree. I think we need to do even more, but perhaps it's also where you do more. And the way we are approaching it is we focused a lot on AI per se as a technology, having groups. We've even we have a lot of research in AI, but there's one lens is to know AI as a technology, and the other is to upskill the people who are going to adopt it. Right? Because AI strategies will never be successful unless you democratize that knowledge. So it's really about upskilling. So we say we have a program, we say AI for networks, networks for AI. Very different things. And the AI for networks say, okay, well, how do we bring the knowledge of AI, the data scientists, etc., but how do we upskill the people? It's the use case. It's only the people that operate the network know what they need to solve for. It's the same question, what do you need to solve for? So I think it's now is the time to maybe go beyond just AI per se and say, how do you make it business as usual? It should be a tool. AI is not the end. It's a tool, it's an enabler for your own business. And by the way, for telcos, it's actually we enable our customers to leverage on AI. But I think it's, how do we embed it into everything we do and make sure that everybody's upskilled to understand, not be experts in AI, but understand the power it can bring to what they do.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be a good summary. I really agree with many points or with everything that you said. But I want to make, because I'm the only one that is not an operator here, I guess. So I'm gonna make a call of action for you guys here. I tell you why you need to invest more, in my opinion, and why this is so important, because you are the experts. So we have AI, this massive thing coming to us, and we're walking around where, what do we do with AI, which we know is amazing and can do so many. But the only one that can know how to, the problem that you have is you guys. So we have to solve, and this is a little bit what you were saying, Gabriela, and all of you, we have to solve problems. Again, what are we going to use AI for, and how are we going to use AI? Because we still want to use AI in a way that makes sense, and that we can't just go around increasing power or going around increasing cost for no good reason, right? So what are the problems that we need to solve? And that's you guys who know that better than anybody else. And we're working very closely with all of you, or many of you, and that's fundamental, that we go and use AI in a way that makes sense, at the place that makes sense, in the size that makes sense, solving the problems that need to be solved.
Okay, great set of answers there to finish off. Any final thoughts about any of the topics that we've discussed today, or any final thoughts just even from MWC for people watching beyond the show, or people here passing in the show? We'll just come down the line. Geoff, any thoughts, general thought about the industry, where what you would like to see happen next, perhaps?
Very briefly, I'm actually very excited, because I think the industry is changing, and there's a very pragmatic feeling at this show, and I think we are embracing the changes and the technology, and I feel this is the most exciting time to be in telecom since the 90s. I don't know what happens, how this plays out, but that's exactly how the 90s felt as well.
Okay, Gabriela.
If there's one thing I would like to see more of, is the telcos collaborating, more knowledge sharing, more collaboration. I think that the competition is not always between the telcos. The ones that are eating our lunch are,
and that is already happening, isn't it? There is more collaboration now.
And I think there's the potential, but we just, we've only seen the beginning of what this could mean for the industry. So that's my Christmas. We're far away, but for the next Christmas wish.
Cristina.
Me, we're in a very, very exciting moment, and I was telling somebody, never boring, right? We do not get bored in this industry. We have the right technology. It's continue evolving. It will get better and better, and there is a lot that we can do right now. And it says again, it's a fascinating time to be in this industry.
Yeah, absolutely. Ahmed.
I would add, since the beginning of our industry, we have never seen a fast pace of technology development like we've seen these years, on these months or weeks, if you like. And this is a great opportunity from us. I come from networks, so this is actually what keeps me up, and keeps me up at night, and keeps me actually energized during the day, so that there is a lot of stuff that we can do, and a lot of value that we can bring to customers, to society, to our companies. There's a lot that we can do, so stay tuned.
Okay, excellent. Well, I mean, we've covered just a few of the topics that were broached in the DSP Leaders Industry Vision report. There is more in the report. Like I said, it can be downloaded from the TelecomTV website, and it's free to do so. So please do that. And I just want to thank our panel, great panel of speakers here today. Ahmed, Cristina, Gabriela, Geoff, thank you very much for joining us today and giving us your insights. Thank you very much.
Thanks to you.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.